rarely about platform. It's about, do you have the trust and confidence in that person to say, there's so many things that we can agree and disagree on. Who's going to be there when it really matters?
I am just honored to work with the human beings in our district that can make this happen together, because no representative can make this happen by themselves.
Welcome to So That Reminds Me, Reminder Publishing's podcast discussing Western Mass news. My name is Dennis Hackett.
And I'm Ryan Fair.
I'll be your host for today's episode. On this week's episode, we are chatting with 1st Congressional District candidates Nadia Milleron and Jeromie Whalen ahead of election season. Whalen is facing off with incumbent Congressman Richard Neal in the primary on September 1st, while Milleron, who is running as an independent, will face the winner of the primary in November. While we made multiple attempts to invite Neal onto the podcast, we were declined an interview at Sheriff Nick Cocchi's annual cookout, and other attempts were left unanswered. So before we get into our interviews today, there's kind of a lot going on, I feel like, in our area.
Yep.
So one of the things I kind of wanted to lead with is the obviously the Springfield Courthouse. The preliminary injunction for that was denied on Monday, with Superior Court Judge David Hodge finding that while there would be some damages, there was nothing really irreparable for Liberty Junction, or not Liberty Junction, sorry, the developers Jeb Elise and Dinesh Patel that were suing for this injunction, citing the conflict of interest there, and they found that there wouldn't really be any significant damages that wouldn't be unable to be repaired, like once the court case is settled. But on the other hand, similarly, the Liberty Junction also wouldn't have had really monetary damages, but the kind of point that the judge made was that there would be a kind of a significant delay in this project if there was that preliminary injunction, which goes beyond just, monetary damages. So they made the ruling that that they weren't going to get that preliminary injunction, and they want to get this project along. While that preliminary injunction was denied, the court case is still kind of ongoing, and they're going to be looking at ways to continue it. But
hopefully this process is finished quickly. I'm sure people are sick of the delays that are happening with the courthouse. And just not only was the process to get to this point of picking a proposal took so long, it's like now it's like this just convoluted situation making its way into the courts. So I'm sure a lot of people are hoping that this gets done quickly. And
it's one of those things too, where on the one hand, obviously they're trying to get this done as quickly as possible, but then there's also been so much outcry, not only in the lawsuit, but also from officials, like Mayor Sarno saying this isn't the best project. District Attorney Anthony Gallooni also saying the same thing, and like a lot of the other kind of folks that are going to have their offices and they're a little worried about this project and maybe not necessarily being the best project, but we'll just see how it all shakes out.
Yeah, definitely.
Another thing I wanted to quickly highlight is State Rep Angela Pupolo and the Hampden County Sheriff's Department recently did an autism symposium a few weeks ago about kind of almost in response to, I'm sure you heard the story about the kid from Munson that was lost for, I think, I don't know, most of a day.
I didn't remember hearing about that.
But this was kind of in response to that, just kind of making people aware of some of the resources that are out there and how they're able to help kids not necessarily wander off and, but
that's a good response to that situation. Well, for my team, Dennis, I can't believe we're talking about this already, but Tyler, our colleague Tyler Garnett, just did a story about the Holyoke St. Patrick's Parade and how they just chose their Grand Marshal, which is insane to think about. So Michael McCordiff was just named the Grand Marshal. It's the 74th Grand Marshal. So that's a huge honor. And, Cordiff, he's kind of a jack of all trades. He's a native of County Kerry, Ireland. He's a celebrated chef, business owner. He served as a banquet chef at the Springfield Marriott for 7.5 years, completed the Total Quality Management Program at Culinary Institute of America. He joined Peter Roscothan and Lawrence Peralt at the Log Cabin Banquet and Meeting House in 1997 as executive chef. He was became a partner in the Log Cabin in 2002. joined a partnership with for the Delaney House in the following year. He was named vice president of both organizations in 2008. Done a bunch of other things. Eventually, the D Hotel Suites and Spa was later added to his hospitality group. And him and Demarinus actually recently expanded their portfolio by reopening Schermerhorn's Seafood Restaurant and Market, which I know is a staple in Holyoke. So, like I say, he's a jack of all trades. He's named Chef of the Year by the Massachusetts Restaurant Association in 2001. He's a 40 under 40 honoree. So, and he's been a part of the Holyoke community forever. So he was just recently named Grand Marshal, so that's definitely a big deal. And hopefully, if we're talking about the St. Patrick's Parade already, I hope that means we can skip winter? That would be nice?
Well, sometimes we're in the thick of it in winter on the parade day.
Yeah, right. Yeah, sometimes there's still snowbanks and whatnot. But so that was a big news in Holyoke. And then the other thing I just want to mention, and this has been ongoing. In South Hadley, they're preparing another tax override vote, and it's on September 1st, which is it's a $3.5 million tax override that the town is asking for. So this is a little more palatable than the $9 million and $11 million override questions that residents didn't vote for back in the spring. So basically, this override, if passed, would fund the schools and library. It would maintain expense cuts and add to the stabilization fund. If it doesn't pass, the town administrator of South Hadley, Lisa Wong, said there might be $1 million cut to schools and $500,000 cut in the town. So another major vote coming for South Hadley residents September 1st. So that will be on the ballot, and residents can learn more about that on their website.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Even though the 7 and the 9 didn't pass, wasn't there also a 2.5 that they did pass? Or am I misremembering?
No, there was
that?
they did discuss multiple overrides. There was like a $3 million they discussed, a $6 million. Ended up choosing the 9 and 11 on the ballot, and then neither of those passed. So they went back to the drawing board, and over the past couple months, they've discussed a more palatable override, and they came to the conclusion that 3.5 would be the number. And the select board of South Hadley voted for this question. I think it was end of July. So that's what's going to appear on the ballot, and we'll see how residents respond to that.
Yeah, we'll see if that smaller number is more palatable for the residents.
Yeah, definitely. Because there's always the concern of rising property taxes,
Yeah.
and that's always a fair argument, a fair point from the resident side of things. So we'll see how this goes.
Yeah. And then kind of moving along to something we haven't done yet, but
Yes.
will be live by the time this episode comes out, is the annual Biggie Media Preview.
Mm-hmm.
So every year, local media outlets and influencers are invited to the Biggie to taste test some of the new food. This is something I look forward to, every single year. It's one of those things on the calendar. Like, this is our, busiest season, whether it's elections, sheriff's picnic, that stuff. So, but this is the one thing where it's like, I get to eat food and enjoy myself too.
Yeah, 100%. No, same here. It's definitely one of my favorite days. Good way to get out of the office, enjoy the nice weather, especially this time of year where it's less humid, and you can kind of feel fall in the air a little bit. I will say it's like a love-hate relationship with it, because mostly love, but after eating all that food, you're kind of like a little lethargic after, but it's like early in the morning, so you kind of you got to get back to work after. But
yeah, and it's definitely a little difficult sometimes, because I know they give us some drinks to taste test.
Yes,
as well,
a couple drinks. Yeah, they got the V1 vodka there. They got some craft beer usually there, whatever they got going on. So. It's always fun. It's always great to see what monstrous concoction some vendors come up with.
Or not so monstrous.
Or
Last
not so
year,
monstrous.
The big hit for our group was definitely the ribs they were doing.
The ribs were incredible. Yeah. That was from Nola's kitchen. Yeah, that was the Asian sticky ribs were a highlight, and I think we were kind of prescient. We because I think they were voted the best food of the Big E.
Deservedly so.
So, and we were very high. The whole staff was very high on them when we had them that day. So. Yeah,
that kind of proved to be my roadmap last year.
Yeah,
because I obviously had those ribs. There was some jumbo, like General Tso's chicken, I think it was, or not chicken, shrimp.
Yeah.
And I remember going to get that at the Biggie. That was really good. It had like tahini on it too. Or no, it was hot honey jumbo shrimp with tahini.
Yes.
That was
hot honey's good on a lot of things.
yeah, you literally can't go wrong with hot honey.
Yeah.
But it was that. I think Down East had a special cider. I went for that immediately. It was like I had all this stuff already. Now let's get like the real portions of it. And it was incredible.
No, that was awesome. I remember there was like a fried broccoli dish that I was like kind of hesitant to try at first. 'Cause I was like, that sounds interesting, but it ended up being really good as well. So I'm excited. Is there? I guess a good segue, Dennis. Is there a specific? Do you have like a specific go-to each year when you go to the Biggie?
Honestly, back growing up, I always had to get the small donuts.
I was about to say that's mine.
Yeah,
the mini donuts are. Yeah,
but like
they're iconic.
Now, like seeing what they have, it's kind of expanded what I'm going to try and stuff. So I always, I don't know, look for different stuff this year. Like I know last year Malicious had a Moon Nut, which was a donut and ice cream, and that was
that's awesome.
Delicious.
Yeah. That sounds awesome.
These days, I'm just trying new things, but yeah, that was always the mini donuts back in the day.
Yeah, and definitely. They did it last year, the Biggie, the $3 day where you can try different things for $3. It's smaller portions, but I think it's good that the Biggie has a day like that because you want to go there and try as much as possible, and it's good you don't get too full right away. So I don't know what day they're doing that again this year, but I think they are. So that's always a day I'm interested in as well. But,
yeah, it'll be different this year too because I feel like it's a week later.
Yeah, it is.
So it's going into October this year, so we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. But we'll always look forward to that. For sure.
Yeah. But I think that's enough talk, and I think we'll get right into our interviews after a quick break.
We get it. You're busy, but you want to be connected to your local community. If you're not reading The Reminder, Western Mass's free weekly newspaper, you're missing out on the heartbeat of your town. Stay in the loop with all the latest buzz, from local stories to community updates and exciting events. It's all in The Reminder. Just log on to thereminder.com and dive into the hometown news you love. To subscribe to receive The Reminder at your home, call 413-788-1316. Don't miss a beat. Your town, your stories, your community for over 60 years. The Reminder. We are hometown news.
Hey sports fans, those incredible action shots you've been seeing in Reminder Publishing's papers? Well, now you can take them home. Reminder Printworks is making your favorite local sports photos available for purchase. The big plays, the big wins, the moments you'll never want to forget. Whether it's your kid's game-winning goal or a hometown champion lifting the trophy, those memories deserve a place on your wall. It's easy to get into the action. Just visit popqr.news/photos and find the shot that means the most to you. Don't let the great memories fade. Get in the game today with Reminder Printworks.
And we're here with Jeromie Whalen, a candidate for the Massachusetts 1st Congressional House District. Jeromie, how you doing today?
I am doing great. We're in the shade over here, just vibing. It feels good.
Yeah. Just quickly, I was wondering if you want to introduce yourself to listeners out there.
Yeah. Long story short, I've been a high school teacher for the last 11 years. Grew up in Belchtown, live in South Hadley. My parents live in Otis, up in the Berkshires. Just a Western Mass boy through and through. And found myself in the classroom in 2016 having to stare my students in the face and apologize after Trump was elected because I said that this isn't how the world normally works. And they got it in that moment, but flash forward to 2024, I found myself in that same predicament. And this time my pep talk was met with shrugs of shoulders, and it broke my heart. And what's up? And I said that we could do better. And then I started looking at what we actually had for representation in Massachusetts District 1. And unfortunately, percentage-wise, our current congressman is one of the top recipients of corporate money. And in a post-Citizens United world, I think that that's unacceptable, and we need what I call progressive is practical agenda. And we launched last year, been working our tails off, and all of that hard work is coming to fruition right now. And on September 1st, I'm feeling really good.
So I guess Is this your first campaign? And if so, like, what has kind of been your approach to campaigning and everything?
Yeah, so first campaign, coming from outside of politics, didn't have really any network of political affiliations there. And honestly, that was one of the best things that could have happened, because from the get-go, I was talking to a friend who was working in Washington, and I said, what would it take to do this, right? And first he said, don't. He just said straight up, it's going to suck your soul out of your body. But then he goes, if you're going to do this, here are the people that you need to have around you. Here are the milestones. Here's the amount of money that you need to do. And I said yes to some of those, and I said no to the others. And what did I say no to? All the things that are the dirty parts of the political, because it's a business, really. Yeah. You need to raise money and to have staff, and you need to run this operation within the confines of a kind of capitalist society, and that entails all the corporate connections that come with it. So we said no to that, and we built a really true grassroots movement that was built on the field game, and our ground game is phenomenal. We have hundreds of volunteers, a staff of 12 that's working around the clock. I'm out there today. I was knocking doors in 6 corners. I see my buddy Mike over there, knocked his door today. And it feels good when you're out there, when you're making a difference, when people see that you care and you're connecting dots in the municipal, state, and federal level. That's how you get the job done.
Yeah. Jeremy, what type of perspective will you bring to Washington? Obviously, you're going up against someone who's been there for forever, it seems like. So what kind of perspective will you bring to Washington?
I think the biggest perspectives that stand out, I have a background in academia. I just finished up my doctorate in mathematics, science, and learning technologies from UMass Amherst. Go U. I have all 3 of my degrees from UMass. Been going there for 20 years. But it's translatable skills that reviewing and analyzing legislation and talking to experts and consulting with stakeholders and constituents. All of those skills that I've developed over my life in academia are directly translatable there. And I also bring in the perspective of being an expert in this district. It's 83 municipalities stretched over 30% of the landmass of Massachusetts. And I've been to every one of those cities and towns. And so you not only need to be an expert in the legislation and policy, you need to be an expert in the people that you represent. And there's a lot of nuances within this district. It's huge. And so to know everybody there and to know their unique underlying problems, that's what I also bring to the table.
One thing I was thinking, I had watched, our reporter Sarah Hanen had done a story on the debate you were at last week, and one of the things that kind of stuck with me was that you wanted to really kind of bridge the gap with like conversations and being friendly with everybody. Like, how difficult is that to do when the two political parties are so split at this point?
I think showing up diffuses a lot of the political tension. And I'll give you an example. I was in Chester, Mass, and I was coming down the road. I just had delivered a lawn sign. I park. I had seen these guys at a canoe race, and they were celebrating, drinking beers in their driveway. And I pulled into the driveway, and they go, "Oh, you're the guy with the yellow van. What's it say on the side?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm running for United States Congress, Democratic primary." And their eyes widened because they were conservative. And it was a little bit of a moment like that. But I was like, you know what? I go, give me one of those Busch Light. That's like my daily driver right there. So that's what I drank in college. So we sat there and I drank that beer for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and everything was politics adjacent. We were talking about my van, but we were also talking about gas prices and how we're all getting screwed. And it wasn't directly about the unaffordability crisis. It was about the things that were going on in our lives, and they were aligning in a really good way. By the end of it, there was 2 guys out of the 4 that took my lawn signs, and one said he was taking down his Trump sign in his garage. And the thing that came out of his mouth after he said that was, hell, you showed up in the driveway. Because when you show up for your communities, people notice. It's rarely about platform. It's about, do you have the trust and confidence in that person to say, there's so many things that we can agree and disagree on. Who's going to be there when it really matters?
Now, if you were elected, Jeremy, what would you kind of hope to accomplish? What would be your primary goals right off the bat if you were elected?
Yeah, so healthcare, education, economy, just the main ones for me. Healthcare, we're seeing 20 to 40% increases in health insurance over a year. That's unsustainable. It's breaking household budgets. It's breaking municipal budgets with Prop 2.5 springing up like weeds. So Medicare for all, a single-payer system. We can't slap Band-Aids on it. We need to restore all the Medicare and Medicaid cuts, but at the same time, we need to totally revamp our system and get corporate greed and blow it out of it. I'm an educator, have been in the classroom for 11 years. We have to look at the totality of the child, universal pre-K, paying teachers and paraprofessionals and educators in general more, and tuition-free community college and vocational training. Begs the question, how do you afford all that? You tax the hell out of millionaires, billionaires, and trillionaires. And we have a model for that. It's called the Fair Share Amendment right here, 4% surtax on incomes over $1 million. We proved it works since it's enacted. We haven't seen a decrease in millionaires. The amount of millionaires went up 35%. And so that tells me that people want to stay here when we're investing into our society in a good way. And so those right there, we can do those things on the state level. We have models for them. Let's extrapolate that on the national level as well.
And I guess one kind of last question. How difficult has it been, like, running against somebody who's so entrenched and has been in his seat for longer than I've been alive at this point, pretty much?
Not difficult at all, because the man simply doesn't show up. And we found very early that the Achilles heel in all of this is he might have $5 million in his corporate war chest, but if you don't have the connections and the relationships, I look around here at this picnic and I see a lot of familiar faces and a lot of handshakes and a lot of people that they say that they're voting for me. Why? Because I'm here shoulder to shoulder with them, doing the hard work, and they respect that. It's not about this perception, which is false, by the way, of bringing money into the district. We looked at community project funding over the last 5 years. We ranked 5th out of the 9 congressional representatives and below average. So we've done a great job at educating people on those false narratives, but the hard work that we've done on the doors, doing the phone calls, writing the postcards, being out in the community every single day for the last year, you can't make up for that in the last 3 weeks, and that's what he's doing. He's waking up to the fact that we have all those relationships. So I think that people are going to be pleasantly surprised come September 1st, and we've done a terrific job on this campaign.
Well, I think that's all we have on our end, Jeremy. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I thank you for being here. I think that, having these conversations is really important. One thing that you may have seen that I do is avoid the national spotlight. And I think that it's really important to have conversations like this, because a lot of what you see on the national stage gets lost in the noise and distorted. And so having local media, having regional media, that's the thing that I always lean into, and those are the relationships and the people that I want to talk to right now and after I win the congressional seat as well.
Well, thank you so much, Jeremy. Appreciate you joining us.
Thanks, Dennis.
All right, we are here with Nadia Milleron, who is running against Richard Neal this fall. Do you mind just telling us a bit about yourself and what made you want to run?
Sure. I was not involved in politics until my daughter was killed in a new Boeing aircraft that was defective and fraudulently certified. And it was the second crash of that plane type. First crash happened in Indonesia, and my daughter was killed in Ethiopia. And even after the crash, I didn't think I needed to get involved in politics, because I thought for sure Boeing and the FAA would prevent a third crash. But they actually tried to put the plane back into service the next month. And so that got me off the couch, because I felt that I would be complicit in a third crash if I didn't speak up. My daughter didn't know that the plane was dangerous, so she couldn't make any choice. And all those 346 people who died on the 2 planes, they didn't know that the plane was dangerous. So I felt that the least I could do was to make a lot of noise and tell the federal government and talk to the press and organize people, and then maybe the public would have a choice about whether to fly on that plane. So I went to Washington. I helped organize. I was the leader of 346 families, and we went to over 300 offices on the House side and in Congress, and then dozens of offices on the Senate side. We participated with the DOJ prosecuting Boeing for their crimes, and came up for air in December of 2020 because we passed the American Aviation Safety and Accountability Act, and that was a big step forward in terms of aviation safety. And we did that with people power, and so Richard Neal didn't help us in that whole effort. He voted for the bill, but he didn't actually help us pass it. And so what I found is that the human beings in the offices and on the street demonstrating, the human beings talking to the press all the time, the mass of people, because 346 families is a lot of people. And that is what made the difference against Boeing. So Boeing has total access They have suits. They have over 100 lobbyists on Capitol Hill. They have very fancy cars. They come out in the hearings with our representatives. Like, they have that kind of access, that they're behind the hearing room with our legislators, and we don't get to go there. So I was amazed that the people power made that much difference. And then I had, by that time, 5 years of experience on Capitol Hill, and I ran against Richard Neal and got 133,000 votes as an independent candidate with no party involved. And then at the end of that election cycle, in December of 2024, the Social Security Fairness Act came up. And that was a situation where a Republican and a Democrat got a discharge petition to go around Richard Neal. So Richard Neal was the chair of the Ways and Means Committee, and he was blocking this legislation which affected the retirement of over 3 million Americans who were municipal employees. And it passed in the House by going around the Ways and Means Committee, and then it came to the Senate, and there were 72 yes votes in the Senate, but Chuck Schumer wasn't bringing it to a vote. And he said, we have to have the time for Biden judges. We can't bring this to a vote. But he was bringing other legislation to sanction universities for having protests. And so we went down there, and I was the leader of a whole delegation from Western Mass, where we're very heavily affected by that theft by the federal government of Social Security that people earned. And we went into Schumer's office, and we had signs, and we were challenging him to say, you need to represent, as a Democratic Party, you need to represent working people. And you're bringing this other legislation to sanction universities, but you're ignoring legislation that affects the retirement of 3 million people. And we had USA Today in there with us. And the next day, Schumer brought that for a vote and used his considerable skills in navigating the filibuster that was going on as a procedural filibuster. So Republicans trying to stop the legislation going forward through procedures, even though they had enough votes to pass it, and it passed, right? And then people got the back pay for this Social Security that they earned. And many, many people worked on that for many years. But we just happened, as Western Mass people, we used the skills that I learned doing aviation safety work to push it forward. So we helped. And we were effective, and you should have seen the joy and the amazement of the people who were in that office and who came home and watched on C-SPAN and watched Schumer shepherd that through, watched him going in off the floor, into committee, back onto the floor, and moving it through. And so that was thrilling for us, and there's a lot of people who want to exercise their power as voters and constituents, and I found a pathway to do that.
Nadia, how did those experiences, those efforts, and even running against Richard Neal before, how did those experiences kind of inform your campaign trail this time around?
Well, you have to have money to run, because it costs over $2 million to reach 500,000 voters across the district. And so I don't think it informed my understanding of what's necessary. You can say to yourself, oh, I don't want it to cost that much money, and I don't want money to be involved in our politics, and that's a correct opinion, and we need to do something about that in terms of the Constitution and legislatively. But the fact is that in order to beat Richard Neal, I have to have $2 million, and so I just confronted that reality, and I made that happen. So
now, how, as an independent, how would you go forward working with both sides of the political spectrum?
So to pass Aviation Safety and Accountability Act unanimously, I worked with everybody. And what you do is identify the fulcrum of what is in common, what people need to do together and what they want to do together. So, for example, every single human being in our country wants insurance companies out of our healthcare because it's an insurance denial system. It's a healthcare denial system, and that's their business model to make money. So if you just pay for the healthcare, you will save $600 billion nationally. And so that's what we need to do. So any human being who has dealt with an insurance company just wants their health care taken care of and their loved ones to be secure. It's not a thing in other countries that you go bankrupt because you don't have health care. insurance, right? It's just not something that happens in other countries. So it's a crazy system. A lot of people really understand how crazy it is, and it doesn't matter whether they're Republican, Democrat, Independent, or whatever. So you go to the point of where people agree. For example, people are underwater financially. They can't afford their own lives. We should not be having federal income tax on income under $100,000 when we need that money to live. So we shouldn't be taxed on what we need to live. And the federal government is using our tax dollars for horrendous things, for forever war, to put service people in harm's way, so that now we have 430 injured as the Iran war moves on. We have 17 or more dead right now. We are not doing good things with our tax dollars on the federal level. So it's better to keep that money in our households and in our communities, where we will use the money in a much better way. And everybody is for this. I haven't found a single person that's against it. And so when you have that kind of pressure on a representative, they may not be for it, but if it's forced to a vote, and I understand the rules of the House, and I understand how to force votes as an independent in a close House. And so when you force the vote, it's pretty hard for them to vote against something that all of their constituents are for.
Going off of that, Nadia, there's a quote that's stuck with me when you had the debate with Whalen a few weeks ago around here, and you said it's not relationships that are going to make this happen, it's pressure. And kind of going off of that, what does pressure look like to you if you were elected?
Pressure is moving bodies into offices, having these polite confrontations where you call people out on their positions, monitoring constituents in different districts and saying your people are actually for this. Why are you not for getting health insurance out? Using the press to expose those people, having demonstrations on the street, taking court actions and participating in court actions. If you're not in the majority, having shadow hearings. I met with Representative McGovern and a delegation this week on Monday, and he said, oh no, we can't have that hearing because the chair and the Republican chair will not allow it. I said, how about shadow hearings? Oh yeah. He said, oh yeah, we can have a shadow hearing. So you have to know what's possible in order to demand it. And we have to have a high estimation of our own worth as citizens. We deserve this. It's not like we should just be begging for crumbs, right? We should have a good quality of life in the richest nation in the world.
Ryan, did you have any other questions?
Nothing else on my end.
All right. Well, and Nadia, unless there's anything else you want to add, I think that's pretty much all we have.
I am just honored to work with the human beings in our district that can make this happen together, because no representative can make this happen by themselves. We have to be a force. We have to use our collective power and work together. And so I found this pathway. I stumbled across this pathway, and I'm ready to go to share it with anybody who wants to improve their quality of life. And we can, for example, bring a federal medical manufacturing zone to our district, and we can manufacture the generic drugs and the hospital supplies that we need here. And we would increase the wage in our district. We would increase the economy. Would help with the supply chain issues that we had to deal with during COVID. So there's so much on those three issues of taxes and medical manufacturing and getting insurance out of healthcare. There's so much that we can actually do to move that forward in a few years. And I wouldn't serve beyond 6 years, because everybody should have term limits. We should go in, do the best we can, use the force of the population to make it happen, and get out and make room for the next person to do service. And thank you, guys. Vote for me November 3rd.
Thank you, Nadia.
And we're back. So obviously we sat down with Whalen and Milleron, and I thought those were informative interviews for anybody looking to make a decision on Election Day, and we definitely wish that we were able to get Congressman Neal on here. Obviously it didn't work out despite our efforts. Yeah, Ryan, how do you think the interviews went and everything?
I think they went really well. Like you said, both very informative. And although it was like a quick snapshot, it was kind of like lightning round questions because we had so many candidates to get to. I thought that both candidates, illustrated their platforms succinctly and I think enough where people are a little more informed to vote on who they think should be in that seat. So
yeah.
yeah.
And then, go ahead.
No, you're good.
Oh, okay. No, and then kind of along those lines, obviously these were just the congressional candidates. We also spoke to a bunch of candidates for last week's episode, so make sure to check that out if you're still looking to decide on voting or what's going on in your area or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then obviously election day or primary day is September 1st. A lot of the people we spoke to do have elections are up for election that day in primaries. There's also plenty of races that will be going to the general race in November. But I think with that, we're going to wrap up another episode of So That Reminds Me. Thanks for listening as always. We'll be back again with another episode in a couple of weeks.
Thanks for listening to So That Reminds Me, produced by Western Massachusetts news source Reminder Publishing. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, find the latest news at thereminder.com, and follow Reminder Publishing on Instagram at Reminder Publishing, on X at The Reminder MA, and on Facebook. Reminder Publishing, we are hometown news.